Good morning, Auroville. This is Abhijit with you again, and today I'm on my third episode of exploring education in arts, animation, and filmmaking. To explore filmmaking, first we have to get a little bit of an idea about the history of filmmaking, starting with the early years from 1830 to 1910. And that brings us to the origins. The illusion of films is based on the optical phenomena known as persistence of vision and the phi phenomenon. The first of these causes the brain to retain images cast upon the retina of the eye for a fraction of a second beyond their disappearance from the field of sight, while the latter creates apparent movement between images when they succeed one another rapidly. Together, these phenomena permit the succession of still frames on a film strip to represent continuous movement when projected at the proper speed. Traditionally, 16 frames per second for silent, 24 frames per second for sound films.
Goodbye. Good, don't cry. The little choo-choo train that takes me away from you. You don't know just how sad it makes me.
Before the invention of photography, a variety of optical toys exploited this effect by mounting successive phase drawings of things in motion on the face of a twirling disc, known as the phenakistoscope, copywritten in 1832, or inside a rotating drum known as the zeotrope, copywritten in 1834. Then, in 1839, Louis-Jacques Mandé-Degreux, a French painter, perfected the positive photographic process known as daguerreotype. And that same year, the English scientist William Henry Fox Talbot successfully demonstrated a negative photographic process that theoretically allowed unlimited positive prints to be produced for each negative. As photography was innovated and refined over the next few decades, it became possible to replace the face drawings in the early optical toys and devices with individually posed face photographs. There would be no true motion pictures, however, until live action could be photographed spontaneously and simultaneously. This required a reduction in exposure time from the hour or so necessary for the pioneering photographic processes to the 100th and ultimately 1,000th of a second achieved in 1870. It also required the development of technology of series photography by the British-American photographer Edward Muybridge. This is where the history of animation and filmmaking overlap. During that time, Muybridge was employed by Governor Leland Stanford of California, a zealous racehorse breeder, to prove that at some point in its gallop, a running horse lifts all four hooves off the ground at once. Conventions of the 19th century illustrations suggested otherwise, and the movement itself occurred too rapidly for perception by the naked eye. So, Muybridge experimented with multiple cameras to take successive photographs of the horse's motion. Finally, in 1877, he set up a battery of 12 cameras along a Sacramento race course with wires stretched across the track to operate their shutters. As a horse strode down the track, its hooves stripped each shutter individually to expose a successive photograph of the gallop. When Muybridge later mounted these images on a rotating disc and projected them on a screen through a magic lantern, they produced a moving picture of the horse at full gallop as it had actually occurred in life. French physiologist Etienne Jules Marie first series photographs with a single instrument in 1882. Once again, the impetus was the analysis of motion too rapid for perception by the human eye. Murray invented the chronophotographic gun, a camera shaped like a rifle that recorded 12 successive photographs per second in order to study the movement of birds in flight. These images were imprinted on a rotating glass plate, later paper roll film, and Murray subsequently attempted to project them. In 1887, Episcopalian minister named Hannibal Goodwin developed the idea of using celluloid as the base of photographic emulsions. The inventor and industrialist George Eastman, who had earlier experimented with sensitized paper rolls for still photography, began manufacturing celluloid roll film in 1889 at his plant in Rochester, New York. This event was crucial to the development of cinematography, since photography such as Murray's chronophotography could employ glass plates or paper strip film because it recorded events of short duration in a relatively small number of images.
I'm happy to greet this gathering of motion picture engineers. It is a great satisfaction to be able to speak to you through the medium of this wonderful invention, the talking film. During the past 50 years, I have witnessed with the greatest interest and satisfaction the growth of the motion picture industry.
But cinematography would eventually, inevitably, find its subject in longer, more complicated events requiring thousands of images and therefore just the kind of flexible but durable recording medium represented by celluloid. It remained for someone to combine the principles embodied in the apparatus of Maybridge and Murray with celluloid strip film to arrive at a viable motion picture camera. Such a device was created by French-born inventor Louis Leprince in the late 1880s. He shot several short films in Leeds, England in 1888, and the following year he began using the newly invented celluloid film. He was scheduled to show his work in New York City in 1890, but he disappeared while traveling in France. The exhibition never occurred, and Leprince's contribution to cinema remained little known for decades. Instead, it was William Kennedy Laurie Dixon, working in West Orange, New Jersey, laboratories of the Edison Company, who created what was widely regarded as the first motion picture cameras. And that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you for listening and have a great day.